Hello traders and welcome to today's market update. My name is Nick and today I'm going to be taking a look at the currency market with you, looking for major levels, zones, and trade setup ideas here along the currency market charts. With today's video, we're going to go ahead and start right with euro dollar. Very excited to take a look at this currency pair as we have seen price start to come back down. On the 4-hour chart, we have seen some pretty heavy selling. Now, real quick, if I back it up to the daily, what you can see here is we are currently trading in a kind of downward channel on euro dollar. Now, if I draw the lower and top kind of channel levels here, you can see that overall price has been channeling back and forth for quite some time here on the daily on euro dollar. Now going forward, we have not quite retested this low. You can see we came down into this area, we did find some sort of a bounce, and now we're seeing price retrace back down. The question is, will we see price come down into kind of this channel level all the way down before finally heading back up? Or are we going to go test that top of the channel first? The question is, we may see price come down to retest this trend line. That's not out of the question, before ultimately kind of finding its way back up towards this area here. Now, why would price want to come to this area? Again, a lot of times in markets, when you do have a strong trend, price does often want to come back and retest areas to test kind of the trend strength overall. So again, looking for some sort of bounce play here on euro dollar. I think that there's a good chance that we do see a retest of the low at some point here as price is nearing that level. We would have to break through this recent structure low and even go down to kind of the wick to potentially touch that trend line to get buyer support in that area. We'll see if that can happen. And if it does, we may be headed back up to the top of this channel to find seller resistance along the recent trend line. I think that this trend line has some merit. It's a long-term structural level of resistance. And I think if we get up there, we might see some bearish reaction. Next up is going to be GBPUSD, which actually kind of caught some sort of upward momentum recently. What you can see here is that price has kind of started to form a little bit of an uptrend here on the 1-hour chart. Now, if price does come down to test this 1-hour kind of trend line here that we have seen, we may find buyer support in that general area. So right now, currently trading somewhere around, 30 to 40 pips or so away from that trend line. But if price can come down to that area, we might actually get some sort of a bounce along that line. Now, if we look at the 4-hour chart, we are still bearish on this structure, and I want to point some trend lines out to you. We have this kind of long-term one right here. You can see if I draw it like this, this level here has been a multi kind of top structural level here for GBPUSD. Now going forward, if we do see kind of one of these trend lines come into play, we might find seller resistance along kind of this zone up here. So we might actually have some room to run for buyers here on GBPUSD. If buyers are not able to hold this level and we do kind of find ourselves failing to hold structure, we may be headed back down to test this recent low as a potential level of support for buyers to gain strength once more. Now, USDJPY is our next one today, guys. You can see USDJPY currently coming back to test this structural level that we talked about last week in one of our market updates. We talked about this structure here acting as a multi-top kind of for this recent structural zone of sideways channeling that we have been seeing on USDJPY. Now, if I draw a Fibonacci retracement, you can see we're kind of right hanging around that 38.2% level. There might actually be a nice little trade opportunity. You can see we did get a quick one right around here. I'll go ahead and pull up my sketchpad. Right around here, just recently, we actually saw price jump up to that area and find continued seller support or seller kind of structure there. And now currently price is headed up to that same area. So the question is, will we see some sort of continued sell pressure in these ranges as we have seen multiple times? Or are we actually going to break out? I think that there's a better chance right now that we do see continued sell pressure. And if we do start to sell off, it's not out of the question that we may be headed down to retest that structural low that we can see here if we look left. That's USDJPY, guys. Let's take a look at Brent crude oil and see what's going on here on this particular chart. We're coming into contact with a trend line level that I do want to mention. This is going to be a big barrier for buyers, but if we can break it, we might actually see oil have a true run. Now, what we have is also kind of this trend line here. You can see we have kind of a structural point. So we're seeing some sort of wedge formation here on Brent crude. Now, if price, again, can break through that structure, you might have some interesting opportunities to go long. For example, if price breaks through this level, which was a multiple top or kind of recent levels of rejection along this trend line, if we can break that level and we get some sort of pullback, might actually be a great little opportunity to ride this trend long and to ride the breakout if we see some nice confirmation or even some retest of structure. Might be a fantastic way to enter with a high probability of success. Next up is going to be WTI crude, which is going to look pretty similar. Now, I do want to point out kind of this beautiful trend line that we have seen going on WTI crude. This level has been a multiple top kind of rejection point as well. You can see price being rejected and rejected and rejected. And if I pull up my sketchpad once more, I do want to point out something about recent structure that has me kind of questioning if we're going to see continued selling on oil. I think we may have some sort of bullish move, because what you can see here is, look at this. We're putting in a series of higher lows and higher highs. You can see, of course, when we got this pullback, we were met with some buyer support along this area before price did get shot back up. Now, the question is, when price gets up here, are we going to actually be able to break through that level and hold it? I think that at first there is going to be met with some seller rejection, because this is kind of a very strong long-term level of rejection. But if we can break through that level, buyers might actually have some room to run on oil. Next up is going to be gold, the very popular currency or currency pair or commodity to trade recently. Gold has been skyrocketing, but now we actually see our first kind of significant kind of pullback that we're starting to see unfold on gold. Not out of the question that we do see price at least come to test down here along this recent level of what was a support structure. You can see price did shoot down to that level, but we looked at this, guys, and this is what's really interesting about gold. If you take a look at this level here, this was our recent high. Notice how when price did come down off of those highs and start to rally, look at this. We actually put in a lower low. Very, very important. So we did have our higher high, right? Price was continuing to trend as usual, but then we see ourselves coming into contact with a lower low. This may be the signs of an early kind of reversal that we may see happening on gold. If we can get through this structural level here, we might see some opportunity to get involved on a unfolding downtrend along some sort of break and retest entry, or even if you're more aggressive, some breakout concepts. That's gold, guys. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next one, which I want to take a look at GBPJPY with you guys here. If we look at the daily, of course, massive selling, but look at the change in kind of concepts here. Look how no green, no significant green candles were in play all along this time, even back since I think the last time we got a really true bullish rally was in May of 2019. Now what you can see is we really saw just absolute selling over and over. But now what we are currently seeing on the pound yen is super interesting, because we're actually seeing some bullish candles coming into play. Could this be a sign that we are going to see a further bounce on GBPJPY? We'll have to watch it closely. But if we look at the 4-hour chart, this structural level here is looking pretty convincing, as we have broken kind of through this structure here. If I kind of pull this over just a little bit, this structure here has been broken through. We significantly broke out of that downward channel, and we actually have been finding buyer support along the way. So really a bullish case being formed here on the pound. We'll see ultimately if that can hold or if we're going to fail and go lower. I think that there's a pretty good chance here. I would not say that there's a guarantee, of course, there's no such thing, but there are some pretty good signs of a potential continued bullish move on GBPJPY. Euro pound is another interesting one to take a look at, guys, because I think we may be wanting to pull back to this structural level here. Now, if price can come down into that area, that may be a level of buyer support, especially if we could line it up with something like this level here, right? This kind of structural point here, right around there, which is a recent kind of top, what was a rejection point, now potential level of support. Aussie yen is going to be our last one for the day, guys, which has entered kind of a sideways trading range. Pretty excited to take a look at kind of what happens here. I think that we have some opportunities for sells up in this area if we can get some sort of confirmation. If we find a nice little trade setup and manage our risk accordingly, might be some beautiful little trades along the top here. With that said, the bottom might also be interesting to watch, because this level might be a good opportunity for targets for any potential sell trades that you do take. Similarly, on the bottom, we might actually have some good opportunities for buy trades if price does ultimately come down into that area. Hopefully this has been helpful to you guys. Thanks so much for taking the time to spend some time on the market update with me, and we will catch you next time.